Hello. On several different occasions, I have had the opportunity to tour the Alaska prison system. Now, when I go to Alaska, I like to go in the dead of winter because, you see, I don't like competition. And believe me, when you're in Alaska in the middle of the winter, you don't have much competition in the prisons. But in the summer, of course, a lot of different prison ministries go up to Alaska, and there's a lot of different things going on. The prisoners want to get out in the yard and exercise, and a lot of competition. But in the middle of the winter, the prisoners are looking for a reason to get out of their cells, and so that is the time I have found to be the most effective as far as ministering to prisoners in Alaska. Once when I was there in the winter, just at a place just above Fairbanks, Alaska, I was staying in the home of Ed Calloway, a dear Christian friend of mine. And Brother Ed never really appreciated what I was trying to do on behalf of the prisoners. I remember on the very first night he said to me, Brother Joe, why are you wasting your time with these guys? You know, you could be doing so much more in other areas of ministry. So many of these guys will backslide and end up back in prison again. On and on and on he went. And finally his wife said to him, Ed, your words are discouraging Joe. So that night our seminar was to begin. Now this seminar was to last for 4 nights, 3 hours each night. And ice crystals set in. Now, for those who've never been above Fairbanks, Alaska, you've probably never witnessed ice crystals, but they are little crystals of ice that form just above the headlights of the car. And they tend to stack up on the headlights and on the windshield. Brother Ed said there's no way that you can drive to the prison with this ice fog going the way it is, so I'll have to take you there. Now, of course, when we got to the prison, it was too cold for Ed to sit outside in the car, so he had to come into the chapel with me. And as the prisoners came in and took their seats, do you know what Ed did? He stood up until they had all sat down, and then when he saw 3 seats, he sat down in the middle of those 3 seats. That way he would have an empty chair on both sides of him and wouldn't have to sit next to a prisoner. Well, we were about 1 hour into that first night of programming when in through the doors came this prisoner with hair down to his waist. He had a curse word tattooed across his forehead. Can you imagine that? Actually cut into his forehead. And he looked to his right and he looked to his left and he saw Ed sitting there by himself. And that prisoner went right over and sat down beside Ed. Now, about every 5 minutes, we would take a little break to find, a 5-minute break about every hour. We would take a break to find out how we were doing teaching the prisoners. And every time we took a break, this prisoner was just like glue on Ed. He really liked Ed. And he said to Ed, he said, do you know why I'm here? And Ed said no. And if he could have read Ed's mind, he would have also heard him say, and I don't care why you're here. Well, the second night, we had ice fog again, so Ed had to drive me to the prison. And here was this fellow waiting on us at the prison door. And all that night, he was just everywhere Ed went, he went. 3 nights, and finally, the last and final night, the 4th night. Now this had made 12 hours of Bible teaching that this prisoner had listened to, and through it all, he had been at the side of Ed. At the conclusion of our seminars, we always have a big prayer circle. And we invite whosoever will to step out into the middle of that circle. I had formed the prayer circle, and I had gone through the plan of salvation, and I said, now men, we're not looking for any numbers here tonight. If no one steps out, that's fine. But if there is someone here tonight who needs Jesus Christ in your life, who wants to become a Christian, would you please step out into the middle of this prayer circle? And this prisoner dropped the hands of the prisoners on both sides of him. Of course, he'd never been to church. He had no idea how to respond to an invitation. He just stepped out in the middle of that prayer circle, fell down on his knees right in front of Ed. And he looked up to Ed and he said, I want to become a Christian. I want to become just like you. Later, as I was leaving the prison, Ed gave me this belt buckle, Alaskan belt buckle, in memory of this seminar that we had conducted at that institution. After I returned to what they call the lower 48, about 2 months later, I was talking with Chief of Chaplains Michael Lynch. And Michael Lynch said, Brother Joe, you know that preacher just above Fairbanks that you stayed with, that went with you each night into the prison? I said, yes. He said, well, now he's in the middle of taking my volunteer training course. And he'll be going in each Wednesday afternoon from 1:30 to 3:30 to teach the prisoners in a Bible study. And so you see, at that seminar, we not only converted a prisoner, but we also converted a preacher. Thank God for the ice that melted the preacher's heart.